Have you ever been in, say, a group project, maybe at school, maybe at work, and you just get that feeling?
Right.
Like, am I the only one actually doing anything here?
Oh, definitely. That feeling that maybe, just maybe, some folks aren't pulling their weight. It's almost universal, isn't it?
Yeah, the classic slacker situation. We've all been there, I think.
We have. And what's really interesting is that it's not just a feeling,
Right.
it's actually a documented psychological thing.
Right. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. The psychology behind why group work can sometimes feel like that. We're
Right.
going to unpack something called the Ringelmann effect and social loafing.
Hmm.
These are the terms psychologists use.
Yeah, and our mission really is to give you a kind of shortcut, a way to understand the big pitfalls, but also importantly, the opportunities you get when people work together.
We want to figure out what makes groups tick performance-wise. How does group effort compare to individual effort? And crucially, what can we actually do about it? Especially thinking about leadership.
And we're drawing on some pretty solid research here, starting way back with Max Ringelmann himself, late 1800s.
Wow, that far back.
Oh, yeah. And then moving through to later studies that really built on his work. So this isn't, some new fad. It's something psychologists have been looking at for a long, long time.
Okay, let's start with Ringelmann then. The Ringelmann effect.
Hmm.
You said late 1800s?
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't even a psychologist. That's kind of wild.
It really is. Maximilian Ringelmann. He was a French agricultural engineer. His main focus was efficiency on the farm.
Agricultural efficiency.
Yeah.
So how did he get to group work?
Well, he was trying to measure the mechanical force you could get out of what he called, get this, animated engines.
Animated engines, you mean? People?
People, oxen, horses, yeah. Anyone or anything that could push or pull. He wanted to know how much force they could generate.
Okay, so he starts measuring, the famous experiment is the tug-of-war one.
That's
right?
a classic one, yeah. He measured individuals pulling, then groups pulling, and here's the kicker.
Let me guess, it wasn't just simple addition.
Not even close. As he added more people, the average effort per person dropped. 2 people pulled less than twice what 1 person pulled. 8 people pulled way less than 8 times 1 person's effort.
So why did he think that happened? Was it people slacking off?
Not according to him, no. His explanation was purely mechanical, really. He called it coordination losses,
Coordination losses.
meaning just the difficulty of everyone pulling at the exact same instant, applying force perfectly together, like tiny delays, slightly different angles.
Mhm.
It adds up and reduces the total effective force.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't about motivation for him.
Not initially. He even pointed out that the same drop-off happened with animals, which kind of reinforced his idea that it was about the physics of pulling together, not about, human laziness or anything.
Fascinating. So it starts as a purely mechanical observation.
Yeah.
But then things changed.
Exactly. Later researchers picked up on Ringelmann's work, but they started thinking, maybe there's more to it than just coordination. Maybe there's a motivation aspect, too.
And how did they test that? This leads us to that clever experiment you mentioned, right? Ingham and his colleagues in '74.
Yes. This was really the turning point. They basically replicated the tug-of-war setup, but with a brilliant twist.
Okay, that was the twist.
They used what they called pseudo-groups. So the actual participant was blindfolded,
Blindfolded, okay.
and they were told others were pulling behind them. Sometimes they even had confederates, people working with the experimenters, making grunting noises like they were pulling really hard.
Ah, so the person thought they were in a group.
Exactly. But here's the genius part. Sometimes the participant was actually pulling completely alone. The rope wasn't attached to anyone else.
Whoa, so coordination loss was completely eliminated as a factor. They were the only one pulling.
Precisely. And what did they find? Even when pulling alone, if the person believed they were part of a group effort, their individual pulling force still decreased.
Okay, that's the smoking gun for motivation loss.
That's the aha moment. It showed clear as day that believing you're in a group can reduce your effort, even when coordination isn't the issue. It separated out that motivation component.
And that led directly to coining the term social loafing.
Pretty much. Just a few years later, 1979, you have Latane, Williams, and Harkins formally calling this phenomena social loafing. That reduction in effort when you feel your contribution is part of a larger group, maybe not identifiable.
Right, when you can kind of blend in.
Yeah. And Latane's team didn't just stick to tug of war. They showed this happened in other group tasks, too. Even things like cheering or clapping.
Cheering and clapping. How do they measure that?
They measured the sound intensity. Basically, how loud each person clapped or cheered, first alone and then in groups of different sizes.
And I bet the average loudness per person went down as the group got bigger.
You got it. The more people clapping together, the less noise each individual made compared to when they were clapping alone. It just reinforced that this wasn't just about physical coordination, it was a broader psychological tendency.
It's just wild, isn't it? This subconscious urge to, wow, slack off a bit when you're in a crowd. Why do we do it? What are the psychological gears turning there?
Well, there are a few key ideas. One big one is about attribution and equity. Basically, how we judge our own effort versus others.
Okay, what does that mean?
We tend to overestimate our own contributions, like, I'm working really hard here, and underestimate what others are doing.
Uh-oh, I can see where this is going.
Right. So if you think, hey, I'm putting in 110%, but maybe they're only giving 80%, you might start to feel, well, exploited, like it's not fair.
And to make it fair, you might just dial back your own effort a bit.
Exactly. To match what you perceive others are doing, it can turn into this kind of subconscious race to the bottom. Nobody wants to be the sucker doing all the work.
That makes a lot of sense. What else?
Another factor is what researchers called sub-maximal goal setting. Or maybe think of it as good enough goal setting.
Good enough.
Yeah, so if the goal is something like pull as hard as possible or shout as loud as you can, when you're alone, that's pretty clear. But in a group.
You might think, well, there are 5 of us.
Mm-hmm.
We probably don't all need to go absolutely flat out, just, loud enough.
Precisely. You might subconsciously redefine the goal from my personal maximum to what's a reasonable contribution for the group to succeed. And that reasonable level is usually less than your max.
Okay. Equity, redefining the goal, anything else.
Yeah, there's this whole idea of the connection or lack thereof between your input and the outcome. It kind of splits into two feelings.
Two feelings.
One is hiding in the crowd. If the group is big enough and individual contributions aren't really visible or measured, well, it's easy to coast a little because nobody will notice.
Your individual slackness gets lost.
Right. And the other feeling is sort of the flip side, being lost in the crowd. This is where you might think, even if I put in extra effort, will it even make a difference? Will anyone notice or appreciate it?
So why bother going above and beyond if it won't be recognized anyway?
Exactly. Both hiding and being lost reduce that feeling that your specific effort matters, which can lead to loafing.
And this kind of thinking, especially the I don't want to be the only one working hard, leads to another specific effect, doesn't it? The sucker effect.
Yes, the sucker effect, defined by Norbert Kerr back in '83. This one's a bit more active, you could say.
More active than just passively loafing.
Yeah. It's when you anticipate or perceive that others in the group are going to loaf. So before you even get started, you decide, nope, I'm not going to be the sucker carrying the team.
So you proactively reduce your own effort from the get-go.
Right. It's almost a preemptive strike against being taken advantage of. It's less about getting lost in the crowd and more about actively deciding not to over-contribute if you think others will under-contribute.
Oh, it sounds familiar, unfortunately. That little voice saying, hang on, is everyone else pulling their weight? Maybe I should hold back a bit.
It's a powerful and sometimes quite destructive dynamic in groups. That sucker effect can really cause performance to spiral downwards fast.
Yeah, I can absolutely see how that would happen. It feels almost self-protective
Oh.
in a way, even if it hurts the team overall.
It does. So, okay, we've painted a picture that might seem a bit bleak. Ringelmann effect, social loafing, sucker effect. It sounds like groups are just doomed to underperform.
Right. I feel like maybe we should just work alone all the time.
But, and this is a big but, that's absolutely not the whole story. The research also shows that groups have the potential to achieve things far beyond what individuals can do alone.
Okay, I like the sound of that. So how do we get that outcome? How do we move beyond the pitfalls?
This is where we get into optimizing group performance. And a really useful framework comes from Hackman and Morris back in 1975. They proposed a kind of formula.
The formula for group success. Lay it on me.
It's basically actual group performance equals the group's potential minus any process losses.
Okay, like the coordination and motivation losses we've been talking about.
Exactly. But, and here's the key part, plus any process gains.
Process gains. So groups can actually add something extra. They can be more than the sum of their parts.
Absolutely. That's the exciting part. We focus so much on the losses, the loafing, but groups can generate unique advantages. Think about a brainstorming session where One person's half-baked idea sparks a brilliant one in someone else. That's a process gain.
Or like a band, where the musicians playing together create something way better than just their individual tracks laid side by side.
Perfect example. That synergy, that emergent quality. That's what process gains are all about. Groups can surpass their potential.
So it's not just damage control. It's about actively fostering these gains.
Yeah.
We know the losses, but what are some of these positive forces, these process gains?
Well, just like we have motivation losses, we can also have motivation gains.
Okay, like what?
One is social competition. If individual contributions are identifiable, people might actually work harder because they want to compare well against others in the group. A bit of friendly rivalry.
Right, the opposite of hiding in the crowd.
Exactly. Then there's social compensation. This is where stronger or more motivated members might actually increase their effort to compensate for perceived weaker or less motivated members.
So instead of the sucker effect, they step up.
Sometimes, yes, especially if the group goal is important to them. And related to that is the Kohler effect.
Kohler effect, what's that?
This is fascinating. It's when the weaker members of the group actually work harder than they would individually.
Why would they do that?
To avoid being the one who lets the team down, they don't want to be responsible for the group failing or performing poorly, especially if their contribution is indispensable, like in that climbing team example where everyone has to succeed.
Ah, interesting. So pressure, but in a good way, potentially.
Potentially, yes. And beyond motivation gains, you also get individual capability gains.
Meaning people actually get smarter or better by working in a group.
Kind of. The main one here is cognitive stimulation. Like that brainstorming example, hearing others' ideas, perspectives, even disagreements can spark new connections and insights in your own mind that you wouldn't have had alone.
Okay, so competition, compensation, the Kohler effects, cognitive stimulation.
Yeah.
These are the upsides we want to tap into.
Exactly. And the research suggests there are sort of three main levers or principles we can focus on to manage group performance, to minimize those losses and maximize these gains.
3 principles. Let's break them down. What's the first one?
The first is group composition. This is all about who is in the group and how their skills, knowledge, personalities, even their initial opinions are put together. It's not just about having talented individuals.
It's about the mix.
Precisely. A classic example is how groups handle hidden profile tasks.
Hidden profile. What does that mean?
Imagine a hiring committee. Each member might have some unique pieces of information about the candidates. One knows about candidate A's technical skills. Another knows about candidate B's teamwork experience. Maybe someone else has a crucial negative piece about candidate C.
Okay, so no single person has the full picture. The best choice is hidden in the unshared information.
Exactly. Now, what the research shows is that groups where members come into the discussion with different initial preferences, maybe one person initially favors A, another favors B, are actually more likely to uncover that hidden profile and make the optimal choice.
Wait, so disagreement before they even discuss is good? That seems counterintuitive.
It does, right. But that pre-discussion dissent, as it's called, seems to trigger more thorough information sharing. People are more motivated to dig into the data, challenge assumptions, and really debate the options, rather than quickly converging on a potentially flawed consensus.
Huh. So a bit of constructive conflict, or at least differing viewpoints from the start, can be really valuable.
It can be incredibly valuable for complex decision-making. And composition matters in other task types, too. Remember conjunctive tasks, like the climbing team where the slowest member sets the pace.
Yeah, where everyone has to succeed.
Well, in those tasks, having moderate differences in ability levels can actually be better than having everyone at the exact same level or having huge gaps.
Moderate differences. Why?
Because that moderate gap seems to be the sweet spot for triggering the Kohler effect we mentioned earlier. The slightly weaker members are motivated to push themselves to keep up with the slightly stronger ones, boosting overall group performance. Too big a gap might be discouraging, though.
Okay, so principle 1. Get the right mix of people and perspectives for the task group composition. What's principle 2?
Principle 2 is group synchronization. This is about how the group actually works together, how they generate ideas, modify them, integrate contributions. It's the process of collaboration.
So managing the workflow, essentially.
Yeah, optimizing that collaborative process. And sometimes simple things can make a huge difference, like continuous visibility.
Making work visible.
Exactly. Using things like shared documents, project boards, even just clear communication in meetings. When individual contributions and progress are transparent,
It makes it harder to loaf.
right. It counteracts social loafing because people know their effort, or lack thereof, is seen. Plus, it can encourage that positive social competition and even the Kohler effect. And seeing what others are doing can spark that cognitive stimulation too.
Makes sense. So visibility helps on multiple fronts. What about more structured approaches for synchronization?
Definitely. Especially for complex decision making, like those hidden profile tasks. Guiding the process helps avoid biases.
How so?
Well, you could structure the discussion, maybe have a distinct phase just for gathering all the information before anyone starts evaluating options. This forces the unshared information out into the open.
So separate information sharing from debating solutions.
Right. Or you could use techniques like dialectical inquiry, where you might assign specific members to argue for opposing viewpoints, even if they don't personally agree with them.
Like playing devil's advocate, formally.
Kind of, yeah. It forces the group to consider a wider range of arguments and evidence before settling on a decision. It synchronizes the debate in a productive way.
Okay, so composition, synchronization. What's the third principle?
The third principle is group learning. The idea here is that groups aren't static. They can and should get better over time, especially if they tackle similar tasks repeatedly.
Teams learn. Like, the team itself gets smarter.
Yes, exactly. They become more efficient, coordination costs go down, and the potential for those process gains goes up. But this learning happens in different ways. Researchers talk about 4 types.
4 types of group learning. Okay, let's hear them.
First, there's the obvious one, individual to individual transfer. This is just members getting better at their own individual skills through practice or training. Think of our climbers practicing specific moves alone.
Right, standard individual learning.
Second, group to individual GI transfer. Here, individuals learn from the group interaction. Our climbers might share tips on technique or discuss strategies for reading a climbing route together. The group experience teaches the individual.
Okay, learning from the group.
Third is group to individual in-group GIG transfer. This is a bit more specific. It's about individuals learning the skills needed to collaborate effectively within that particular group.
So learning how to work together.
Exactly. Like our climbers learning how to communicate effectively while on the wall, how to anticipate each other's needs, how to provide support during a tricky move. It's learning the dance of teamwork specific to that group.
Got it. And the 4th type.
This is group-level learning, GG transfer. This is where the group as a whole develops collective capabilities that aren't just located in individual members.
The group itself learns. How does that work?
A key example is developing transactive memory. This is basically the shared understanding within the group of who knows what.
Like knowing Dave is the expert on financials and Sarah knows all the client history.
Precisely. Over time, the group learns where knowledge resides and how to access it efficiently. They also build interpersonal trust, shared routines, and common understanding, all of which makes collaboration smoother and can reduce things like social loafing because there's more accountability and cohesion.
Wow. So it's II, GI, GIG, and GG learning. Individual skills, learning from the group, learning how to be in the group, and the group developing its own collective intelligence.
You nailed it. And thinking about these 4 pathways really highlights how teams can develop over time. It's not automatic, though. It requires intentional effort.
Which leads us perfectly into the role of leadership, right?
Yeah.
Because someone often needs to guide this composition, synchronization, and learning.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
If we think about leadership in organizations, it's fundamentally about influencing, motivating, or enabling other people to contribute effectively towards the goals of their work unit or team.
Setting the stage for success.
Exactly. And this isn't a new idea either. Some really early classic studies looked at this. Kurt Lewin and his colleagues, Lippitt and White, back in the late 1930s.
The 30s, what did they find?
They famously compared 3 leadership styles: autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire. They looked at how these styles affected the social climate and productivity of boys' clubs doing craft activities.
Autocratic, democratic, laissez-faire. What was the difference in outcomes?
Well, the autocratic leader made all the decisions, dictated tasks, and was quite controlling. The democratic leader encouraged group discussion and decision-making, acting more like a guide. And the laissez-faire leader, they basically provided minimal guidance, letting the group do its own thing.
What happened?
The democratic groups had the best overall climate, more friendly, more task-focused, and crucially, they kept working even when the leader left the room.
Interesting. What about the others?
The autocratic groups were sometimes slightly more productive when the leader was watching, but there was more hostility and dependence, and work pretty much stopped when the leader left. The laissez-faire groups, well, they were often chaotic, less productive, and showed more frustration.
So even way back then, it showed leadership style profoundly impacts not just how much work gets done, but the whole group atmosphere and sustainability.
Definitely. It highlighted that leadership isn't just about giving orders, it's about shaping the group's process and environment.
Which fits with modern ideas too, right?
Hmm.
We talk less about the single heroic leader now.
Exactly. The focus has shifted much more towards shared or team leadership. This means leadership functions, influencing, motivating, guiding, aren't just done by one person. They can be distributed among different members at different times, depending on the need and expertise.
So leadership becomes a group property, not just a person's role.
Ideally, yes. But whether it's a designated leader or shared leadership, the functions are key to optimizing performance, linking right back to those three principles we discussed.
Okay, let's connect those dots. How does leadership influence group composition and task design?
Effective leaders play a huge role here. First, they ensure the team is actually a real team, clear boundaries, shared purpose, stable membership. Then, they help structure the task itself, making sure it's meaningful, provides autonomy, requires varied skills, and has clear, challenging goals.
So setting the team up for success structurally.
Right. They might even consciously think about rotating leadership roles for certain tasks to build capability or leverage specific expertise within the group, enhancing participation.
Okay, what about group synchronization? How does leadership help there?
This is about managing the ongoing interaction. Leaders can actively facilitate information sharing, especially in those tricky hidden profile situations.
How? By just saying share more.
More actively than that, they might deliberately repeat unshared information to make sure everyone hears it, ask probing questions to challenge assumptions, or ensure minority viewpoints get a fair hearing.
So actively managing the conversation to avoid biases.
Exactly, and good leaders are also adaptable in their style. They know when to be more directive, maybe when they genuinely have unique expertise or a quick decision is needed, versus when to be more participative, encouraging broad input when knowledge is spread across the team.
Matching the style to the situation and the distribution of knowledge. Makes sense. And finally, group development, your learning.
Leaders are crucial enablers here. They can foster that transactive memory, the who knows what, by encouraging collaboration, maybe setting up systems for knowledge sharing, promoting decentralized communication.
Making sure people connect and learn from each other.
Yes, and fostering team awareness, especially if the team is dispersed, making sure members have a sense of what others are working on and how their work fits together.
And what about the actual learning processes?
Leaders can ensure resources are available for individual skill development, that I learning. But more importantly, they create the psychological safety and the opportunities for group learning, encouraging feedback, debriefing after projects, GI, facilitating team-building activities that improve collaboration skills, GIG, and celebrating collective achievements to build that group identity and capability, GG.
So leadership is really about intentionally cultivating the conditions for the group to perform well now and get better over time across all those dimensions.
That's a great way to put it. It's orchestrating the potential of the group.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today. We started with that common frustration, the feeling of unequal effort in groups, backed up by the Ringelmann effect, showing output doesn't just add up.
Right, driven by both coordination losses, the mechanics of working together, and motivation losses like social loafing and the sucker effect, where people just hold back.
But then we flip the script. The key takeaway really isn't just groups are inefficient. It's that while those losses are real, there are also powerful process gains available.
Absolutely. Groups can achieve more than individuals through things like cognitive stimulation, social compensation, the Kohler effect, if managed well. It's not just additive, it can be multiplicative.
And understanding these dynamics, composition, synchronization, learning, and the leadership that guides them gives us the tools to actually make that happen.
Mm.
It lets you, as a listener, be a more effective team member or leader.
It's about recognizing these natural tendencies, these quirks of group interaction, and working with them constructively rather than just getting frustrated by them.
So here's something to think about.
Yeah.
The next time you find yourself in a group situation, maybe a meeting, a project team, pause for a second. Ask yourself, are we experiencing coordination loss here? Is there a bit of social loafing creeping in? Maybe even for me.
And then the crucial follow-up. What's one small deliberate action you could take right then or afterwards to counteract that loss or maybe even spark a process gain? How can you help nudge your team towards achieving something truly greater than the sum of its parts?